Today on In the Woodyard, we're talking about clean firewood. Here we go. So this is a topic that has come up several times in the comments. People have asked me, people make comments about it, and I've seen some things that, quite frankly, were disgusting. As far as products that other people are trying to sell or have sold. I have had customers that I have gained from people that delivered wood to someone before me and loaded it with a bucket, scooping it off the ground, dumping it into a trailer, and dumping it in someone's driveway. One guy in particular I delivered to probably about 2 weeks ago now. I delivered the wood, and it was the first time I delivered there. And he said to me, he says, "Wow," he said, "this is really clean wood." I said, "Well, yeah." I said, I poured all my wood after it's split into a bin, and it goes on pallets off the ground, and it's got sides, so we stack it up. And I said, then I hand load it into the trailer because that way it stays clean. I don't have a system yet, maybe someday I will, where I can use a bucket, put it into a tumbler, disc cleaner, or whatever, and clean the wood, and then have it go into the trailer. I'm not that automated, not that big yet, but someday I may be. But there are people that try to not work very hard. They use a lot of machinery, and they figure, oh, just put it in a big pile, we'll scoop it up, and we'll dump it, and we'll deliver it. Well, this particular guy I was just telling you about, he told me he got 2 face cords or 2/3 of a cord. I delivered the same amount to him, and when he got his first load from the guy he bought from earlier in the year, he said he had 3 wheelbarrows full of dirt, rocks, bark, branches, debris, sawdust, crappy crap. It was terrible. And he said the wood itself was just caked in debris. He said, like, to the point where it wouldn't come off. And he said, we burn in a fireplace in our house. I don't want to be taking that stuff in my house. So he said every single piece that I had to pound it off, because he says you bring it in the house, especially if it's cold or if it's froze on there, stuck onto it, dried or even wet, and you bring it into your house. He said it was just a mess, and it was just terrible. And he said, I assumed that's how a lot of wood came, because it's, you know, manufactured in a way that it's outside. And so he said, I called you, and after asking questions about how you handle it, and I remember he asked me, he said, well, how do you store your wood? How do you load it? And I knew what he was getting at, that he had a problem. So I told him, I said, well, everything I have is in bins, on pallets. It's either going to be stacked on pallets like this, which I used to do a lot of. Possible that it's in totes, but most of the time all my stuff is in big bins off the ground so that the sun and the wind can do its thing and it can dry, and it's clean wood. So I have seen places that I've stopped at where they had roadside stands, and they had mountains of wood, and one guy had a big end loader there, and the wood was literally just ground into the dirt. The wood that he had on his stand, oh look at that, we got a friend. The wood that he had on his stand was all caked in mud. He had no signage, no prices. It was just wood in a rack there in front of a business that was off to the side a ways away. I had no idea how much he was charging, what kind of wood it was, other than I could identify it, what quantity was in there. It was caked in mud. All the wood off to the side, you could tell that he had just shoved it all over there. It was absolutely horrendous. I'd be surprised if he sold anything, unless he's selling to someone maybe that has a wood boiler and doesn't care. But that's not my customer. My customers are people that are bringing wood into their house to have a fire in the fireplace. They want clean wood. And when I say clean wood, that means no mud, no bark that's just all over it, sawdust, rocks, sticks, debris, all the garbage. The other thing they don't want is wood like this. They don't want snow on it like this, froze onto it. I don't have that issue because, watch out here, Mrs. Cat. Watch out, watch out, watch out. So what I do is when I'm loading pieces, I grab 2 pieces at a time, and I go like this. I do that, and then the snow comes off, and I throw it into the trailer. I do have some wood that does have snow on it, but what I do is I go into the edges of it and I pull it off. I'll show you a load that I just put on that you can see that was in the snow, but there's no snow on the wood. We might be 1 or 2 flakes. I'll show you right now. So here's where I just dug my wood from. Now you can see there's snow all over on here. So and this is wet, sticky snow. So what I do is I grab a piece, pull it out, And then I take another piece, I have one in each hand, and I give it a wrap like that, and then it's clean, and then I throw it into the trailer. And the trailer's over here. I'll show you what it looks like right now. And this is really the only time of year that I have issue with snow. I used to cover everything with tarps, but this year I just ran out of time. I did have intentions of covering all my wood in my bins with tarps. But I had this little thing called hunting I had to do for a couple weeks, and then another thing called trapping for a couple weeks. So I was gone a lot, and then I got busy doing deliveries, and it didn't happen. And I was really worried about it. I thought it was gonna be a big issue. But here's the wood I just chucked in. This just got thrown in here, and yeah, there's a few specks of snow on there, but for the most part, it's not an issue. Yes, there's a little bit of moisture on there, but you know what happens? It dries up. It's not a big deal. A little bit of water is not gonna hurt anything. A lot of people panic and they think, oh, you know, you gotta cover your wood so the rain doesn't get to it. Well, have you ever noticed if you're anywhere where there's sidewalks or driveways or roads, when it gets rained on, it can rain all day long. And then later in the day or the next day, the sun comes out, and within a matter of hours, it's dry. Wood does the same thing. Because the wood is all dry and the cells are closed, it doesn't really absorb moisture. The surface will get a little bit wet, but then it dries. Some people say, well, it turns gray. Well, yeah, it's called weathered wood. Weathered wood is the best burning wood there is. So what happens is you will get some stuff like this on the end here. It will turn a little gray on the end, which is not a big deal. But if you look on the inside, I'll pull a piece out from here. The inside is perfectly good, and it's not an issue. When it rains, that's the other thing. People think, oh, the wood, that rain's just gonna go right down through the pile. It doesn't. It goes in maybe a foot, foot and a half. After 2 feet, this pile could get rained on an inch or two, and the water just kind of flows off the pieces. The stuff in the middle stays dry. I've dug into big piles like this after it has rained because I have to do deliveries, and I'll purposely tunnel in a little bit, throw some stuff off to the side that are wet. And when you get down there about a foot, foot and a half, it's dry wood. Because the wood doesn't let the water just run straight down. It actually comes out because it's at an angle. Most of the major producers, guys that produce thousands of cords of wood and do it full time, never cover their wood. They do big peaks. They start in totes where the sun and the wind can do its thing. If the sun and wind can hit it all the time, it'll be dry. If it's off the ground. Now, if you're on the ground making ground contact, it will wick some moisture up. So you want to keep your wood off the ground. That's an issue. So here's another pile that I have. This is hickory right here, and I've dug into this, and there was a bunch of snow on this, but as you dig and as you can see, it's dry. Now this snow we had a while ago, it was, I don't know, like 16 inches or so, and it's been melting for the last 2 days now because it warmed up. The top few pieces are wet, but look inside of there. It's dry. It just doesn't really matter, I have found. Obviously, it'd be nice to have it all dry, 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 but it hasn't been an issue. It really hasn't. There was a ton of snow on this stuff. Look at this pile here. This is beach down here. Because it's high, look at this. A little bit of snow, but for the most part, on the outside, where all the snow was, it's dry. And if you look inside, there's a couple pieces that got a little water, but you go underneath it there, dry. It really isn't an issue. And that's heavy wet snow. Got another pile over here to show you. This is a pile that I have that stacks stuff. This is the stuff that I sell to my my pizza restaurant. And this stuff we did stack when we first moved here because we wanted to consolidate it, get it off the ground. And so we put it on pallets like this right here. This had snow on it. Look at that. There was 1.5 feet of snow on here. And it all melted off. It blew off, melted off, and the wood is dry. If you look inside of there, all dry. Dry, dry, dry. So here's another example. These are totes, well, not totes, they're bins that Bert built with 3 pallets. There's a pallet on each side and on the bottom, and then he puts boards across the top. Snow's on top. Down inside, the wood is dry. If you look in there, it's all dry. None of it's covered. It just dries off the top, rolls off the top. You can see right here, there was piled snow up on top of here, and that is all dried off. Yes. Some of you are screaming at the screen right now, probably saying, yes, but you don't understand. We get 4 feet of snow a year where I live. Well, then maybe you need to cover your wood. Maybe you need to put it in a shed. Maybe you need to do something different if you want to keep it dry. But when you got hundreds of cords of wood like I do, it's kind of hard to cover it all. Now, the big producers, like I said, the guys that produce thousands of cords of wood a year, they don't cover their wood. Big, huge peaks, cones, they like to call them, and they don't have an issue. And one guy in particular that I know, they sell 3 to 5 semi-loads every week, get shipped out. They don't touch any wood. It gets put in cones, they scoop it up, put it in a tumbler, goes into a big semi-truck bed, big box, and they ship it away. But their wood is clean. So there's that. Okay, so I came over to this big bin, and I've been eating away at this. This is a pile of hard maple that I've got. There's 5 semi-loads in this big pile here. As you can see, it's big. This is just one end of it. But if you look inside of here, if I was to take this wood to sell it, of course I wouldn't dig this stuff right here. I'd start right here. Now I just start grabbing and pulling pieces. But let's look inside of here and just see. I'm gonna pull a bunch of this off. Okay, so the top few pieces, there's a little bit of moisture. And then as soon as you get down, not even a foot. So here's the top. We're down about a foot, bone dry in here. Dry, dry, dry. And if I wanted to, we could scoop in here with a bucket, shake it a little bit, pull it out, and start tossing it in. So even this big, huge pile, they got a massive amount of snow on it, is just fine. Now these bins here are ones that Bert stacked of all my pine while I was gone deer hunting. He wanted to clean up the yard, so he stacked all these totes full of pine. And this wood is all like a couple years old. And he stacked it all in here. This all had snow on it. It looked like that, but it was heaped up with snow. And because it's open and dry and the sun can hit it and the wind can hit it, all dry, all the wood is dry. And it's not covered. Isn't that something? That's kind of amazing. Smells fantastic. So if you sell firewood and you're after a one-time customer, meaning that you can deliver and sell wood to them one time and you never want to sell it to them again, deliver dirty wood, because that is a bad thing. And I don't care if you're doing it like stacking in piles, delivering your wood so that it's off the ground and it's covered with tins or tarps and you've got them all hand stacked. That's awesome. If you got it in bins like I do, where it's off the ground, it's not full of debris and stuff, that's awesome. But if you're using a bucket to scoop it off the ground, you better have a disc cleaner or a tumbler or a way of cleaning your wood before the customer gets it. That is not a good thing. People don't want dirty wood. And I would never buy wood from a person again if it was all ground in mud and dirt and stuff like that. My customers are not people that are heating, like I've said many times. I have very few customers that heat with wood. The ones that I do, they have wood stoves in their house. They don't want to bring mud and dirt and grime and stuff into the house. But if you've got a boiler, or you're selling to people that do have boilers where it doesn't matter, then I guess you can have dirty wood and just throw it in and it's no big deal. But I recommend clean wood. People like a good, clean product. Anything else you buy in life, you don't want dirty. If you're gonna buy something like a brand new car, do you want it to be full of dirt? No. If you're buying food you're gonna eat, do you want it full of dirt? No. Clean. Clean is good. Be clean. That's all I got for today, folks. Thanks for watching. Come on back tomorrow, 5:30 a.m. I have another video for you right now. Go watch all the other videos on my channel. There's 1,300, a lot like this one, just waiting for you to watch. Good night, everybody.